Recruiting for the class of 2025 is heating up. Coach Davis and the staff are everywhere right now, and it begs the question, what's the perfect mixture for next year's roster?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. It's Thursday, September 12th, 2024. It's the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea, joined by our guy, Coach Bill Robinson, a two-decade veteran of the Carolina Basketball School, Carolina's summer camp. And you're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We want to thank you for making us your first listen or watch, and send a special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and you great members of the brand new Locked On Tar Heels Insider program. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Coming up on the show today, we had a great question actually from one of our Locked On Tar Heels insiders who was asking about Carolina's roster construction for next year and how all the high school recruits of 25 should factor into that. So Coach Rob and I are going to dive into that exercise. And then we're going to look at, in segment 2, how Coach Rob would piece together a roster right now from scratch, right? And so, the great head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes is going to get a clean slate at the D1 level, and we're going to see what he does with it. And for months and months and months and months, Coach has shared with us stories from his book on our show. And now it's my turn to share some of my favorites from having read the book myself, Carolina Basketball School, History, Stories, and Drills. So we're going to get my take on it, and then we'll get Coach's behind the scenes. By the way, as a reminder, you can grab that book right now on Amazon, or if you want to get a signed copy, you can email him directly at wdrobinson@milligan.edu. Coach would love to sign it, shoot it out to you, and make sure you get a copy in your own hands. So, Coach, let's dive right into this exercise. It's going to be fun. By the way, I've made a promise that when Locked On Tar Heels insiders send in mailbag questions and things like that, man, we're going to prioritize those as a perk of being one of our insiders. And so this one comes from Will Hager. Will says this: with all the basketball recruiting news and upcoming visits like this weekend, I was curious to know your thoughts on the perfect recruiting class for the class of 2025. How many high school players would you ideally take? How many transfers would you add to that group? And at what positions would you target those transfers, given your high school recruits and expected returners, transfers out, and draft entrants from the current roster? Coach, that's a lot of moving parts. That's why so many schools are hiring general managers in this day and age. And there's a lot that we got to do to figure this out. Now, one thing I need to add to this before we dive into it, there is a very high likelihood that the scholarship number is going to jump up next year at the D1 level. It hasn't been formally put through yet, but for now, we're going to treat this exercise as though it's still the current 13 scholarship max. So, Coach, let me just run through, we've got our roster right now, and then I'd like you and I to first go through and kind of make predictions of who will be gone, who's on the fence, all of that kind of stuff. So, super seniors for this year, there's 3 of them: Tyson Claude, RJ Davis, Jalen Withers. No 4-year seniors. There's 4 juniors: Van Allen Lubin, Seth Trimble, Cade, Tyson, Jalen Washington. Sophomores, there's Elliot, Cadeau, and Zayden High. As a reminder, Zayden High will not be with the team this year. Up in the air, we'll see what happens next year. As for the freshmen, James Brown, Ian Jackson, and Drake Powell. Coach, obviously the ones that are definitely out are the 3 super seniors who will be out of eligibility. Beyond that, who do you think is likely out, maybe going to the NBA draft or things of that nature?
Yeah, I think Ian Jackson's probably going to go. I think that's what the thought was all along. I know that's kind of the conversation I had with the staff this summer. They all expect him to be a one-and-done guy. Not as sure about Drake Powell. Again, he blew up a little bit more this summer, so I think there may be a little bit better chance. Again, it's going to come to what kind of year he has. and the feedback they get from the NBA is so valuable. And that's why it's great to be at Carolina, because they know all those guys and they can get a realistic, hey, honest, does my guy have a chance to go in the first round? If not, hey, we're gonna counsel this guy to be able to come back again. Those two for sure, you feel like would have to come back. Other than that, I mean, we love everybody, but at the same time, we'd love to see them stick around and get more experience. But I think those two guys for sure, Ian for sure, Drake, in my opinion, right now, probably, because he's really had a great summer.
Yep. And then we look at, I think Elliot is on the watch list of, like, it just depends on how big a leap he has. Coach, if I was handicapping it right now, I would say it's probably not there to make the leap yet, but maybe he should go and test next summer. And again, a lot of that's going to come down to what kind of year he has this year. And then not because of NBA things, but just we don't know right now about Zayden High and how that will all play out. So those guys are all up in the air. The ones, to me, Coach, that are pretty likely back, barring having an absolute blow up year, would be Van Allen Lubin. Actually, all four juniors: Van Allen Lubin, Seth Trimble, Cade Tyson, and Jae'lyn Washington. And then I think James Brown as well. Would you disagree or differ on any of those?
No, I totally agree on all of those. And again, maybe someone that has just a crazy year. Jay Wash just blows up and average and becomes all conference and just proves that he can be at that next level. I'd love to see him stay, get bigger, get stronger, get more healthier, and to just be able to stay healthy, prove to people he can stay healthy. Those are the things. Those guys, I would think pretty good chance all those guys will return.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at least those five, the four current juniors, James Brown, and then let's keep. You want to keep Elliot in? You want to put Elliot back?
I love him to death. I really do. And in my heart, I think he should stay. In my head, he's probably going to go. I hope my heart's right this time, because I think we'll be better, and I think in the long run he'll be better. But I could see him definitely making that. If he has a good year, he's gone, and he's just such a great leader too. When on the floor, be able to make people better. I think when people see that he can make that jump shot this year, if he shoots as good as we think he's going to, he'll probably be gone as well.
The continuity would obviously be huge if he was back, but we don't know. For the sake of this exercise, what do you want to do?
Let's keep him.
Let's keep him. Elliot Cadeau's coming back for his junior year in this exercise. So you got 6. What do you want to do with Zayden High?
Honestly, I think we need to plan with him being gone. Okay,
perfect. So let's have those 6 back. You want to have Drake be gone for this exercise?
Yeah, because I love Drake. I think he's awesome. And if I'm an NBA team, I'm maybe a late first round, but I'm going to swoop him up, and I think he's got unbelievable potential. The earlier I get him into my program, the better. So let's.
So we've got 6 back for our exercise: Elliot Cadeau, Van Allen Lubin, Seth Trimble, Cade Tyson, Jae'lyn Washington, and James Brown. Coach, when you hear of those 6 players, what would you call that? A hextet? I don't know how you group a group of 6. Quartet, quintet, hextet? That seems to make some sense. I don't know. You got anybody that's a polygon genius out there? Let us know. Anyway, Coach, as you hear that grouping, and I guess we should group it by position. You got Cadeau, Trimble in the backcourt, Tyson on the wing, and then Lubin, Washington, Brown in the front court. What do you want for that roster out of the high school ranks?
Out of the high school ranks, it'd be nice to get a backup shooter, somebody who's just maybe the best shooter on the board that we can get. Somebody who can. I think you start all the 5 and then have James Brown as your backup, and I love him. I love his energy. I love his ability to run the floor. So even then, I still think by that time maybe he's fighting for a starting spot somewhere somehow with those guys. But he'll definitely get it in the rotation and play minutes. But I want the best shooter, maybe the best athlete I can out of high school, and then I'm going to the portal. One of the great things about the portal is that you do have more time to see how the season has gone. You can wait a little bit later to see, where everybody falls, and then it's a little bit later. You get better decision making, and really, there's guys right now that they'll be on the team next year that don't even know that they're going to go in the portal next year. So they're not even about transferring. I thought kind of ironic. We have 4 transfers this year. 2 of them had never even heard of Milligan this time last year. And now they're very happy and it's part of our family. And 2 of them are going to probably start, and they've never even heard of us. So obviously they've heard of Carolina, but they're not even thinking about transferring yet. But it's an unbelievable time to be able to wait and get those guys when you really, really need them most.
Do you think this is totally aside? Do you think they know they're going to start, or did you just break news for your own team here on the show?
I think one of them for sure knows he's going to start. I think the other one's still fighting for time, but that will come Monday when we start practicing.
I love it. I love it, Coach. I'm just leaning into it a little bit. So I like that thought about getting a shooter from the high school ranks. One was on a visit last week, for example. Derek Dixon would be a great guard out of the DC area who could fill it up some. And then there's other great shooters that would be more like the small forward or a power forward. You got Braylon Mullins coming this weekend. There's guys like that. Obviously, if you can win the AJ DeBanza sweepstakes, you're going to take that and run home and scream and shout and yell for that. But yeah, I mean, and I think both, you always want shooting, but especially Hubert Davis, right, is looking for guys who can fill it up and do, be part of the Carolina family. But that shooting, I think, is critically part of that. So, in our exercise, we've got 6 returners, plus I think you were saying maybe 2 from high school, like a shooter and then a big that can help fill up the front court. That would get you to 8. And then, Coach, what kind of numbers would you be looking at out of the transfer portal and positionally as well?
Yeah, well, first of all, when Coach Williams was coaching and we're at camp, we knew we'd get 30 seconds conversations with him. He'd always come around at the end of camp and say, "Hey, thanks for working. Really appreciate it. Hope you had a good time with your friends." The best advice I was ever given, because I always try to come up with an agenda. I'm going to ask one question. I got 30 seconds. What can I get from Coach? Get some wisdom. And I said, Coach, we're recruiting. We've got 1 spot left. Do we get a specific position, or do we just get the best talent? And he hesitated for a second, and he gave us the greatest advice I've ever received when it comes to recruiting. He said, go out and get the very best talent you can get, and then you'll figure it out. So if you talk about the 8 guys that we've had right there, now I'm going to get the best talent I can get.
Regardless of position.
Regardless of position. If we get another big and great big, we'll figure out the bigs. If you get another guard, we figure out the guards. You get a wing. But you probably, again, Hubert's not going to go past regardless of what the scholarship limit. They could put 20 on the limit. And I really don't believe Hubert's going to bring more than 11 or 12. He's just not. And he's told me that you're not going to keep those guys happy. They're going to transfer. It's not going to be good for your program. So,
no, I mean, yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No, it's just so you got 8. We bring in 3, the best 3 guys we can get in the transfer portal, and then figure it out.
Yeah, I like that. And, I mean, with what you just said, I look at that Duke team down the road that returns 2 guys from last year, Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster. They bring in 3 transfers that are going to be, I think, more role players. And then these 6 freshmen. And John Shire's going to have to find minutes somewhere for all 11 of these dudes who are going to be wanting it. And I'm telling you, at least 2 or 3 are going to get left out in the cold. And so just to kind of prove the point that you're making there. Coach, I want to give you a blank slate, and I want to let you create your roster from scratch. We're not buying a pre-made meal here. We're cooking all the ingredients, Bill Robinson style. We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you about Factor. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-created meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. So make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? Because with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like a filet or shrimp or blackened salmon. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off of next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel this summer, America's #1 sportsbook, and usually we've been mentioning a boost or a bonus that FanDuel gives you every day. Well, right now I got something a little bit different for you, because right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. How about some odds for this weekend's football game? Carolina hosting NC Central. Tar Heels favored by 37.5 points with an over-under of 55.5. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all of Sunday, September 15th, pregame money line bets. Profit Boost will be live starting tonight, Thursday, September 12th. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Coach, we've just been talking about how we would construct next year's specific Carolina roster. What I want to do is give you a hypothetical D1 team where you're starting from scratch, which funnily enough is not an unreasonable reality in this day and age. Just ask John Calipari at Arkansas, or I don't know, Mark Pope at Kentucky, Coach Cal's former school, who've basically had to do that exact thing this summer. So, Coach, my question to you is, how would you go about constructing your roster? Meaning, like in an ideal world, what would be the combination of returners plus incoming freshmen and skill sets that they would bring, and transfers, and what you would be looking for in them? How would you piece this all together if you had carte blanche, all the NIL you wanted, et cetera, et cetera? Build your team, my man.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, but balance is the big word for me. I want to have a mixture of returners. You want guys who can sell the school and the traditions. So you don't want to bring in a whole brand new group. You want guys that have been there, guys who can show the other guys where classes are and feel the traditions of the school, and where do you get the best wings, and what's the place in town to get your oil change. All those little things that make life so much easier. I teach a coaching for character class. It's my favorite class to teach. But part of that is the debate we have between talent and character. Which is more important? Yes or no? Which do you want? And the answer is yes. You want both. The #1 factor in winning and losing is talent. You know, you can take the very best team and give them a terrible coach, and they're going to beat a team that's a bad team with a great coach. It's just coaching is a factor, but the talent is the #1 factor. So obviously you want to build a team that's got lots of talent. I love the balance of having a half and half transfer returners, high school kids. You know, I don't want all transfers. I don't want all high school kids. I don't want all the return. I mean, so there's got to be a mix between how do you fill that all in together. And a lot of it has to do on the year, and the talent will determine that. So I think if Hubert gets this coming year, like if he gets a bunch of these high school kids that are really talented to come, transfer portal will not be as important. But I think it's going to be the other way around. I think we'll get a couple high school kids and then fill it in the other way. But ultimately, I've never had a bad team that was a great rebounding team. So you need to get some great rebounders. I want to, and size is, I mean, it's so important, but the athleticism and the way the game is played, everybody's got to be able to shoot it. So how can you find a rebounder who can also maybe step out and shoot it a little bit? That's a very valuable piece. I want a point guard who can make everybody better. I want a jet. You know, my favorite point guard of all time, and it's still, I mean, Jason Kidd's my favorite point guard, you know, of that more modern era. I loved Mo Cheeks. Mo Cheeks was my guy. He was steady. He didn't do anything flashy. He wasn't super athletic, but everybody got better when Mo Cheeks had the ball in his hand. My favorite Carolina point guard, you know, is Kendall Marshall, just the way he'd be able to pass the ball. But I love Ty Lawson, his ability just to change the pace of the game. They played so fast. And as Coach Williams used to talk about, that he played with a sense of urgency. When he got the ball in his hands, it was go time. And from one end to the other, there was nobody any quicker. Even though some of the guys on staff now think that, you know, Elliot can be just as quick getting from one end to the other. And I agree with him. I think he can do just the same thing. But you want that Wayne Ellington shooter, somebody who you just consistently knock down threes and can extend the floor, and to make sure that they can't double in the post. because all that kick out pass and that one extra pass, you giving a wide open look to somebody like that. You have to have the shooters, and you have to have multiple guys who can shoot the ball now. I love that leaky black defender. You need a defender who can just be that stop guy. I had a guy coach a few years ago, Mike Featherston, who ended up coaching with me and then went to Western Kentucky to coach, but he could guard anybody. He could guard the point guard. He could guard the post. He was 6'6". He was long. He could use his length against the little guys. He could front the post and not just be a gnat to those bigger guys. You have to have somebody. It's not as simple as this anymore, but Carolina camp coach said to me one time, he goes, you need a handler, you need a shooter, you need a glass man, and you need a defender. And in simple terms, that's what you need. And then you need some depth to go along with it. But if you have an opportunity for me to be in this situation for real, I'd be glad to sign that contract anytime. I'm ready to experience that, the endless NIL and a free open slate at a Division I level. That would be a dream come true.
Well, Coach, as soon as I hear of it, I'll give you the first call, and I'll come be your GM or ball boy or something, get to be part of that staff. I'm not a coach, but I'd figure it out and whatever. We'll make it happen. So it sounds like, because you've got some people leaning heavily into the portal. You've got some people like a Shaka Smart, for example, who are basically eschewing the portal, at least at this point. Like literally at the Power 5 level, only Marquette and Purdue have literally no transfers on their roster this year, or in this cycle took no transfers. But I hear you saying, like, I want to kind of hold all of these things in balance. And what I'm curious about is, do you think, like, if you had a player with the same talent that was coming out of high school, that was going to be, you could have him for 2 years out of the portal, which one would you take?
It's hard not to take the kid in the portal you're going to have for guaranteed for 2 years, because you want to have some stability along the way. So the 4 transfers we got this year, only one of them is a 1 year and done. He's a grad transfer. All the other guys have multiple years. So it's not like you're just taking hey, this is a 1 year program and it's changing from year to year. A lot of programs are like that right now. You got this team, and then next year it's going to be a different team. Then the year after that, it's going to be another totally different team. I feel like the team we have right now is a 2 year team, even though we got 5 or 6 seniors, but we still have major pieces that will be part of the team for the next 2 years. So to have somebody 2 years, I think is much more beneficial if they're equal talent. Now, if you have that freshman who's more talented, you get that number 1 player in the class, you got to take that kid for sure. But if you equal talent, you get 2 years, you got to take that kid.
Makes sense to me. Out of the 13 scholarships, how many do you think you would use?
I still would use 13.
You would, okay. And then go ahead. Sorry.
But I would use 11, 12, 13 in a way where you're getting somebody, and it's probably not going to be a portal kid, but I'm going to get a high school kid and say, listen, you're going to learn under Elliot Cadeau for a year. And then when he's done, it's going to be your time.
It's like redshirting, but you're actually on the team and playing.
Exactly. And we do that with our kids now. We're real upfront and say, hey, listen, we got a spot for you on varsity. We think you're going to play a year, and we've got one right now. He's not going to play right away, but we want him to learn. We want him to grow. We may actually, depending on what happens, in a month, say, listen, we're gonna lift 2 times a week. You're gonna lift 4 times a week because you've got to catch up physically. Let's put you in a hyper mode and see if we can get you quicker, stronger, more explosive. But we're going to lift you more, knowing you're just not going to be playing 30 minutes a game. So that next fall, you're a little bit further ahead than you would be if you didn't do that. Knowing he's not going to play, he may play 5-6 minutes a game. Great kid, super worker, maybe one of our hardest workers, but he's just not talented enough right now to play. So let's go ahead and give him a little advance. It's not redshirting. You're still going to have the opportunity to dress and practice and play everything. But we're dressing 17. We can only dress 15 for the conference tournament. So barring injury, somebody's going to have to sit anyway. So though that's a whole different philosophy, it's a whole different thought, but that's something great. we're considering it very heavily right now.
I like it. So then my last question of this segment before we move on to book stuff. of those 13, again, in your ideal utopian society basketball team world, how would you apportion out those 13 between returners, high school, and transfer portal? How many of each?
I like that 4 returners. Then you have some stability there. I'd say 4 high school kids, maybe 5 transfers. Is that the right number?
Yeah, that's 13.
That's 13. But
4 times 3 is 12 plus 1.
Yeah, 13 was my number, and so I always liked 13. I've never been afraid of 13. That was my number in college. So I've always thought 13 was a great number, because then you still can have 2 teams of 6 with a guy hurt if that happens, or you could run a couple JV guys in there and have 15, or a couple coaches, because I like to have young coaches around. So if you want to do 5-on-5-on-5, but you always like to have not too many people sitting around. You don't want people standing around. So 13 is a great number to have. And you have 13 scholarships, and I mean, I would use them all, because I want to have. We don't want to get in a situation like that a few years ago where we lost 3 or 4 kids and we're playing with 9, and then you're practicing with a coach every day, and so you want to have some stability there. That's never a good thing to have a coach play just to have 5-on-5 in practice. So 13 is a great number in my opinion.
Love it. Thank you. Now, guys, many of you have read Coach's book and all the great stories therein, seen all the plays that are in there. We were just kind of talking about some of Coach's strategy there. He's so often shared stories with us on the show, but now that I have read the book, now it's my turn to ask him about some of the stories myself. We're going to turn the tables in just a second. Right after I tell you about LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn's not just some other job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those that aren't actively searching for a new job, but might just be open to that perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And they're constantly finding ways to make this process easier for you, like recently launching a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making, again, this process quicker for you. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Coach, this great book of yours is chock-a-block full of so many great stories and anecdotes, some from you. I love that you've invited others to share some of their stories as well. I've had a lot of fun reading those just because I didn't know them, because you've only been sharing like your stories mostly, as well as reading through some of the plays. As I said earlier, I'm not a coach, so I'm getting all sorts of X's and O's, and I think I'm ready to come be an assistant at Milligan for you if you need me.
Come on.
Outside of that, I just wanted to mention a couple of the stories and just get a little more behind the scenes from you. The first of which is, just a couple of nights ago, we had our presidential debate. And so it was reminding me of the story from page like 57-ish, where the team went, where actually at that point, Senator Obama came to visit the team in 2008, played with the team, and Jack Wooten was assigned the guarding, the defensive assignment on future President Obama. And as President Obama put it, that was a providential game because he won the presidency and the team won the national championship the next year. And of course, Jack had gotten in trouble with Coach Williams for guarding the senator too close, because there was plenty of Secret Service there guarding him themselves. And so just a funny story. And Coach, some hilarity ensued at the White House that day. And I just wondered if you would regale us with that bit of the story.
Yeah, it was really cool to hear Coach Holliday, one I interviewed about that whole story, but to hear the firsthand account of Obama knew every guy's name. He knew every single one of them. He called them by name. He asked for 10 minutes privately with them, told all of his Secret Service to go away so he could just be a fan, just be a guy and talk basketball with you got the Tar Heels in your house. You just want to sit around and just talk with the guys. But then he did give Jack a hard time about fouling him and kept fouling him. And, everything was great except for Jack just kept fouling him. And then Jack he was ready. He brought a resume with him. He wanted to possibly get into politics. Of course, he made the horrible decision by being a coach. He decided he wanted to get into coaching. But, when one of his aides asked, hey, do you have a resume with you? And sure enough, Jack went in his jacket, said, here you go. Here's my resume. So just unbelievable. And that's what happens when you're at Carolina. You have those type of experiences that most normal programs just don't get.
And I love that that's heralding a young man. I'm looking at his stats right now on Sports Reference. Jack played 37 total games in his career. Between those 2 years he was on varsity, scored 15 points. And obviously, not a heralded guy, not even a guy, he played 70 total minutes, or excuse me, no, where's the minutes? 70 total minutes in his career, and yet had this special moment with the two-time president of the United States because he's part of this Carolina family, man. And I just love how that stands out amongst things.
Jack was a good player. Jack would have been a great player at Milligan. He would have played 70 minutes and scored 15 points in a week for us. But that's just the choice you make if you want to try to be a Tar Heel.
And is also a helpful reminder for those who look at the walk-ons or the guys that play on JV and say, those guys are scrubs. No, they would light every one of us up in a pros versus Joes matchup. So just keep that in mind. Coach got a whole bunch of stories that I liked. Maybe we can save the rest of them for another time. I'll mention one other, and then I know you wanted to give a word of thanks as well. There was a guy who had become was kind of a budding young assistant coach that decided, kind of wisely to your point, about getting out of coaching and became a referee, and that's Mike Hefner. And there was a story that as a father of a young man who's currently 8 years old, this story of Mike Hefner's lane violation really spoke to me, and I wondered if you'd remind us of that one.
Yeah, Mike and I have been friends for a long time. He was actually a great official, and we became friends, and we were working in the same gym, and this kid was at the line one night and missed a free throw, and I'm watching the game, and Mike immediately blew the whistle and called a line violation. Nobody moved, nobody stepped, nobody did anything. They gave the ball, and he took the second shot and made it, and everybody just kept playing. So I went up to Mike afterwards and said, what happened there? What happened? Who violated? I didn't see anybody move. He said the kid hadn't scored a bucket all week. That was the first chance he had a chance to actually score. And when he missed it, I had to give him another chance to give him an opportunity to score. And as far as I can remember, that was the only point that he scored all week. And he wouldn't have done that if Mike hadn't. It was just his love for these kids and the ability to maybe manipulate the game a little bit to make sure that this kid found just a little bit of success. And that's part of camp. You want everybody to be able to score. You want everybody to at least win one game. And Mike made sure that he got his bucket that day. It's pretty cool.
And to your point in the book, this isn't just some random ref that might work a couple D3 games here. I mean, this is a guy that's worked a D1 game alongside TV Teddy. And so, that's the echelon we're talking about here. But again, a reminder of the people that are drawn to this university. And so I'm grateful for that story. Speaking of being thankful for this place, Coach, I know you had mentioned to me you had a couple words of thanks you wanted to get out on the show today as well.
Yeah, I had a couple guys that saw the podcast last week talking about Mitch and Coach Michael. Just shoot me a message. Their books are on the way right now. I just want to make sure they knew the books. They should be here today or tomorrow. But I do think the book's been it's been really fun. It's connected some really cool family, friends. My fifth grade teacher bought one. She wants me to sign it when I go back to Jersey. Friends from my childhood, and it's just been a really cool thing. It's not going to be a New York Times bestseller, but it's been a pretty cool thing for me, and I'm just glad it's done so I can focus on coaching the Buffalo starting Monday. So it's been nice.
Man, that's so fun. And again, if you want to get one directly from Coach, W.D. Robinson at milligan.edu. Just shoot Coach an email, and he'll be happy to connect with you and make that happen. If you're not subscribed to our show already, we would love for you to do that on both YouTube and on your favorite audio podcast platform. It's just as simple as hitting the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss a second of the show. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, man, we would love for you to come be part of that. It's free to join. The link for that is in the show notes. Come for the Tar Heels. Stay for that great community we've been talking about. It's a healthy fan place to be. I promise you that. Also, as we talked about earlier, come be a Locked On Tar Heels insider where you get to text directly with me one-on-one anytime. I'm happy to answer questions, interact with you. Man, it's just part, like, I don't do this for me. This is our show. We're all in it together. And you get free access to all my stats and data and spreadsheets. You know, we've talked about all Coach's diagrams in the book. We've talked about maybe having him do some film breakdown for the Locked On Tar Heels insiders, things like that. It's free to check out for 2 weeks. Then after that, it's just $5 a month. That's all it is. It's like buying me a coffee to hang out and chat and have a great time together. A great way to help support our show. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow to get you ready for the football game with our guy Cersei. But until then, peace.